One of the topics making headlines these days is the state of America's mental health and what can be done to improve our very human condition. Our therapist friend, Dr. Jonathan Carroll, offers some advice this morning. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, Angie. Thank you. Good morning.
Well, it is the topic. It's a hot topic of the mental health of children, teens, and Americans in general. So, what are we looking at, and what, in your studied opinion, can we do?
Well, of course, we have had a mental health problem for probably as long as we have been. We're becoming more and more aware, informed, educated, and conscious about that, which is a good thing. Pandemic-related stress, seasonal affective disorder, which is a function of one kind of depression, anxiety over current events, world events, violence, racial tension, you name it. We are all experiencing it, and we're all experiencing it all at one time. And that is difficult for us. Our brains are designed to protect us from everything hitting us at once, which is why we have things like denial and other coping mechanisms. But once we kind of relax and take in all the information, things can seem pretty dire. It's always been this way. It just seems more so, I think, because we're so informed with 24-hour news cycles and social media. We really have to be intentional about taking a break from information, which I think is really important to do. But in addition to that, I think we do our best when we turn away from that tendency to turn inward towards self, I, me, and my, and we begin to do things for other people. I believe that service to others is the most beneficial antidote to our mental health crisis.
Well, Jonathan, it has to be intentional, and when we are in the throes of anxiety or fear, it's really a challenge to say, I know I should find a way to serve. I know I should do these good things, but to make that step is the real deal breaker for a lot of people.
Absolutely, it is. And it's very hard for us, I think, to push aside the thoughts, almost all of them negative and almost all of them automatic. So we call them ants, automatic negative thoughts.
Yes.
And they tend to take over. However, our brains will do what we tell them to do. And so I think the most important thing in those moments of anxiety, when it feels like our real need is to protect and turn toward self, is to just try to do one tiny thing differently than that. So it might mean sending a text message to someone, which for most of us is free-ish. It's already included in our monthly plans, to write a note, the cost of which would be a stamp if we don't drop it in someone's windshield or in someone's front door, to make a phone call to someone and simply say, how are you? I'm amazed at how few times in conversation that question gets asked of me or my wife, Joy. We talk often about, we try to ask questions of people, and I think they tend to enjoy talking about themselves and forget to say, well, how are y'all? So it's a really important thing to reach out to someone and say, how are you doing? Let's talk about you. Let's talk about how things are going in your life. Life is hard. It always has been. And it's important to remember that these things aren't necessarily happening to us as much as they're happening for us. We really do have an opportunity to think about what's going on in our world and in our personal lives differently, and to imagine that the obstacle is not in our way. The obstacle is the way. This moment in my life is to make it through, not around, not above, not under, but through this obstacle, and I become stronger mentally and emotionally for it. And that gives me even more desire and more intention and more wherewithal to reach out to someone else and say, how are you doing?
Simple and beautiful and true. Jonathan, it's always good to see you.
Always good to see you too. Thank you so much.